welcome to my first podcast. My name is Lance Burkett. I'm a photographer and a lecturer based here in the UK. I've toyed with the idea of podcasting for as long as I can remember, but I'm such a busy boy, I've not really got round to having time to do it. I just so happened this week to be off on half-term break from my day job as a lecturer, and among recording some videos for private tutorials and things, I thought, hell, I'll give it a go. Why not? So here we are. I've got no real plan of what I'm going to talk about, other than quite clearly I'm a photographer, and photography is something that I enjoy. I teach, I still work as a freelance photographer. So I guess my plan is to talk about photography. More recently I've been delving into the history of photography and trying to understand where it originated, and I'm coming across some really fascinating things that I aim to divulge in an academic paper, perhaps towards the back end of next year. It's taken a lot more putting together than I envisaged, because the deeper I go into the history of photography, the more I realise that in actual fact we've been lied to, and the history of photography is not what it's purported to be. So I will probably talk about things as I find them. I'll discuss things, I'll ask for opinions. I'm always open to suggestions. You can email me, the details will be shared out in the descriptions below and whatnot. But the history of photography is quite an interesting area to go into, so we will discuss that a little bit. We will also discuss the future of photography. In my previous paper, The Death of the Mechanical Photograph, which was published at Journal and Arts in December last year, discusses the future of photography and the possible or the probable death of it within the next 40 years. So we'll go down those roads a little bit. We'll talk about virtual reality technologies, and that will lead us inevitably into another area of mine which I enjoy looking at and discussing, which is actually what reality is. I've gone through many versions of my thoughts on that, certainly over the last decade, and more and more the one that makes sense to me through research, through my own observations, is we must live in some kind of virtual, not fake, but manipulated, energy-based reality, which does appear solid, I grant you that, but is in actual fact possibly not. So we'll probably talk about those kind of things a bit. But photography, the history of, the realities of, the applications of photography, the industry in general, teaching. I'm a lecturer. I lecture at, or I have lectured at various places. I'm not going to mention where I lecture on air, because I want this podcast to remain personal to me, and I don't want it in any way to be misconstrued as being the thoughts and opinions of anywhere that I've worked. So let's just say I lecture photography at both level 3 and university level, so I'll keep the names out of it, like I said. But I like to talk about the industry and education, and where I think it's going, and what I think is good and bad about all that kind of stuff. But like I just said, it will be my personal thoughts. It will be how I feel about these subjects and things, not so much what other people think, because these are my thoughts, no one else's. I will probably have guests on. I know quite a lot of people in the industry. I know all the teachers, I know all the photographers, I know all the filmmakers, I know all the theorists. So I probably will, hopefully, as this podcast develops, begin to invite people on for discussions. In the meantime, I guess, sorry, I'm a coffeeaholic. In the meantime, I guess I'll just open the questions up. We can do that through Twitter, so you can field them to me through Twitter, which is at Burkett Photo. You can email me, burkettphoto@gmail.com. I'm quite open to get emails from people. I do get quite a lot of emails, industry-based questions and things like that, just general emails, lots of them. You can catch me on Facebook by just putting in Burkett Photo, or the Photo Tutor is my private tutorial page on there. So you can kind of get me all over the place. Just ping me a message, ask me a question, give me a topic to discuss, and we can discuss it. As we develop the podcast, I might be able to get technology involved where we can have live conversations and I can broadcast live. I'm not quite sure yet what I'm to do with it. Really, for now, it's just a place for me to dump all my thoughts. Really, because in writing papers, in making private tutorials, in working as a freelancer, and having a full-time job as a lecturer, I don't really have time to write the blogs like I used to, and I love blogging. but I'm sitting in now having a cup of tea and doing other things, and I thought, why not just record it? I'll just record myself talking, get my thoughts out, get them down. If anybody else gets anything from them, that's great. If not, I've dumped how I feel off, and I don't have to write it down. That's saving me a lot of time, and it frees my brain up to think about other things as well. So that's pretty much where we are, and pretty much why we are. This is not in any stretch of the imagination a highly technical broadcast. It's just me, a microphone, computer, and a camera recording me. It's as basic as it gets. I'm currently sat in my kitchen because I no longer have a studio, so my wife's working today, I'm not, so I kind of like adapted the kitchen so I can just sit here as quietly as possible. I can hear a bit of a hum from the fridge though. I might have to sort that out. We might have to knock the fridge on the head during these. Until I figure this out, might end up in the bedroom, might end up in the bathroom, might end up in the garden shed, who knows. But as long as I'm somewhere quite private to do it and I can talk and rant and just keep jabbering, because it seems to be what I'm good at, so I'm told, we might get something good out of this thing, who knows. So yeah, that's it. This is going to be the Time Traveller podcast. Why Time Traveller? I travel through time. I only go backwards through time, but I spend most of my time in the past. Even though, if you read my paper, The Death of a Mechanical Photograph, I would suggest quite heavily in there is no past and there is no future, there's only the now. I guess I do live in the now, but everything I'm doing in the now relates to the past. Mainly because I spend a lot of time looking at, editing, critiquing photographs, which are remnants of the past. They're depictions of things already been and gone. So Time Traveller seemed quite an apt kind of little name. Initially it was going to be for some tutorials and some YouTube kind of stuff, but that never materialised. That developed into the photo tutor, which is something I'm doing privately now. So I've kept the Time Traveller tag. I thought I'd use it for the podcast. It's a nice little title, plus I'd already made some visuals and some music to go with it, so I didn't want to lose that. So we're going to go with Time Traveller. So yeah, that's how that name came about, which is quite strange. I kind of like names. I do a lot of, as photographers, we tend to name our photographs, don't we? Which is a strange thing. You know, people are looking at a photograph and we encourage them to make their own mind up about what they think it is and says and does, what it means to them. But to stop them from doing that, we put a big name tag underneath it. You know, fiery skies, or you know, the hills have eyes, or there's always some, you know, wonderful name that goes with the image, which stops people then from making their own link because they've got this preconceived idea of fiery skies. I'm as guilty as the next man of doing that. My last exhibition that I did in 2017 for my master's degree was, I called it This View From Here, because it was literally a translation of my view from the back garden into images, and I kind of hoped that didn't stop people making their own interpretations up of it, even though I built a replica of my back garden and had them stand in it. I guess that's a bit more literal. It was my view from there. But I didn't individually name each image. It was like a collection of images. It was about 15 images hung on a washing line, 1 metre square, printed on A3 laser copy of paper, stuck together to make a 1 metre square image. 15 of those on a washing line. It was quite interesting, but I didn't name individual pictures. I named the collective This View From Here because it was my view from here. So I kind of hoped that didn't steer people away from making their own interpretations of what it was I was alluding to. But yeah, generally naming pictures, you tend to find it on Instagram. You know, people get onto the old Instagram and they call their pictures all sorts of things. You gotta love the old Instagram. Instagram's another bit of a bugbear of mine. This might sound slightly paranoid, but I think I'm currently being a little bit shadow banned on Instagram. If you look on my Instagram feed, which is Burkitt Photo, you'll see. Oh, there goes a charger. You'll see. Up until around 6 months ago, 8 months ago, I would average probably somewhere between 60 and 100 likes per image, and gradually over the last 6 months or so, that's gone down to sometimes one or two an image. I still have the same amount of followers, I still post at the same times of day, I just no longer receive, or my images no longer receive the attention that they once did. I'm pretty sure that's because of some of the hashtags and tones and themes that I use in my imagery. For instance, I'm quite heavy on air pollution, not so much in the way that we think, but more in the way of the belief of being, for all intents and purposes, poisoned by what we collectively know as the powers that be. So if I've tagged up my images with things like chemtrails and geoengineering. Yes, people may say I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist. Not really. I'm more of a conspiracy realist. If I see something that doesn't smell right, I have to look at it and figure out why it doesn't smell right. But even my fashion images, I would post a fashion image 6 months ago and get 60, 70, 80, 90 likes and views, and now I get 3 or 4. So clearly something has changed over the last while. It doesn't bother me personally. It bothers me in terms of I like people to see my work, and a bugbear of Instagram is giving permissions for them to use and reuse images. Is it a catch-22? Is it a bit of a, if you're getting a lot of traffic and a lot of likes and a lot of publicity through it, it's not such a bad giveaway. If you're being pinned down at 1 or 2 likes per image, then you suddenly start to think, what's the point? So I am currently mulling over whether Instagram is a place for my work moving forward. Because I guess the only way around that is for me to say, actually, I'm going to stop being like that. I'm going to stop being awkward. I'm going to stop asking questions. I'm going to stop, being me. And I'm not. I'm just not going to do that. I am who I am. I am who I think. I think, therefore I am. So I think, do I want to give Instagram permission to reuse my pictures without compensation for an eternity, for nothing back? No, I don't think I do. So that's where I'm currently at with Instagram. I do still post now and again, but nothing like the volume that I once perhaps did. So that's my view on social media. Twitter I used to love. Twitter I still use it now and again, but again, I actually deleted my Twitter account for about 12 months and started a new one, and I struggled to get back into it because as a photo sharing platform it's not great, but I did used to get freelance work from there. But again, it seems no matter what I post, how much I post it, I'm getting no interaction. So again, is it worth the hassle? Am I better off just using my website and letting traffic flow through my website? Facebook is another one that's designed now for you to have to pay to get any kind of feedback and sharing of your work. I haven't run the odd campaign where I spend 10 quid here and there just to get a tutorial or something up there, but it's not something I would do long term. Facebook was great at sucking people in and then changing the platform and the algorithms to make you have to pay for people to see your work. So again, out of those 3, as a photographer, I don't really have much use for them. Their terms and conditions are set out to blatantly rip you off and take your work from you. Do you have to use them? That's probably an argument we could have all day long. Having to use them means you need an end game. And what is your end game? Can you bypass them? You probably can. You just need to be inventive to get around them. So we'll probably go over social media at length. Hopefully we'll get some guests in and get some other opinion. But for now, you're stuck with me. So yeah, being shadow banned, some people might call it paranoia. I call it quite obvious because I can see the numbers don't stack up, and I do realise that Instagram is starting to hide likes and things like that. It's not going to no longer let you see likes, blah blah blah. But This has been going on for a long time. It's not a recent thing, so it is what it is, and it'll be what it'll be. And whether I decide to keep it or change it over, well, obviously that'll be up to me. But for now, it's just kind of there. It's not something I think about that passionately. What I do think about is sharing my work. So I think, as well as using my website, working with clients, being the best I can be, and perhaps using this little podcast as another outlet for people to, although we're not looking at visuals, we're using audio and talking about my work, for people to pick up on what I do and how I do it and why, and hopefully that might garner a little bit of traffic past the website. Current stats on the website aren't too bad. I get quite a few visitors. It's nice to have some analytics and look at where people are going and what they're actually looking for. It's quite interesting which pages they visit and how often. So yeah, I mean, the website has been, I've had that website, Burkitt Photo, for probably, must be coming up on a decade, really. It used to be lanceburkitt.com, but I changed that to Burkitt Photo because it was a bit more apt. I've had it a long time, and it's had various facelifts over the years, and it's another thing that I'm always kind of planning to do more on, and dress it up and add it and add that, and I just don't have time to do it. So it kind of just sits there, quite basic, doing what it does. But unlike social media, because it's a privately hosted website and a friend of mine's servers, I can kind of post what I want there. And although Google's algorithms may lock it out and stop people from finding it so readily, or finding something so readily, it is still there, and I can direct people straight to it, and other people can direct people straight to it. We just have a look at it now, actually. You can see it's quite basic. There's not a lot going on. Photo shooter, portraits, entertainers, little link to my Vogue RT bit. But it's all there. Everything I do is there. I tend not to post anything controversial there. Mostly just post what I'm offering and images. But again, I can't remember the last time, if I'm honest, I sat down and updated the images on it. That's perhaps something I should do. Being a photographist. Something I find quite interesting to do as a photographer is to always have little personal projects running in the background. I do talk to photographers, especially commercial photographers, who are busy and they're kind of like struggling to find work, and they're having to take up other little jobs, which is fine. We all have to do that. I've spent my working life always finding the next job. Outside of the last 5 or 6 years where I've worked in mainstream academia, I've always been on the lookout for the next job. I've never been in a position where I'm that comfortable I could just sit back and count the money and wait for the next gig to come in. But a thing I find to keep people interested, and at least to make it look like you're working and that you're busy and things are happening, is to run personal projects. Always have a personal project going. So for the last, perhaps, certainly the last 4 years, maybe even longer, I've begun to have a bit of an affinity with people living on the street. When I say living, that term's used very loosely. It's more like an existence on the street. I know the insides out. I've looked at the research. I've written some words on the blog about the work that homeless charities do and their reasoning and the figures and numbers and the reasons for homelessness. And the truth is, as a society, if we wanted to, we could snap our fingers and cure it tomorrow. Yes, there will always be the odd person who wants to be there, who has personal issues and social issues that can't help themselves, but generally speaking, the hidden homeless, especially sofa surfers and whatnot, we could end it tomorrow. We really could. Yeah, we could just take Wayne Rooney's wages for a couple of weeks and end the whole thing. But as a society, through greed and through selfishness, which is mainly what causes it, we don't do that. We end up with people existing on the streets. So me and my wife, we go to Liverpool a lot. It's our favourite place in the world. It's a beautiful, beautiful city, great people. We do aim to live there at some point. I just love photographing the place, and I don't just mean buildings. I mean the people and the places. But we noticed over the from we first started going regularly in 2014, and we noticed over the couple of years that the homeless situation was getting worse and worse. Every time it went, there was more. It was more obvious. So I just began documenting this in a photography sense and started taking pictures as I went around. Now I'm not a street photographer by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not, like William Klein or Eric Kim, those guys. I can't just walk up to somebody or take the picture and walk off. I tried a little bit of press photography once and I was rubbish at that as well, because I don't have that barefaced, don't careness to walk up to people and do it. I like to photograph people with permission. So to a certain degree, it was my kind of like fear of approaching people, but more than that, I didn't want to invade somebody's personal space and make them feel like they were an object. So what I've done is I've done what street photographers call shoot from the hip. I've kind of just had my camera in hand, walked round, pointed it in the general direction in the hope of catching something, and that's how I've documented the streets over the last 5 or 6 years. And it kind of, I think it adds a realism to my work in that it's the pictures are moving. They're very rarely in focus. There's always some motion blur, sometimes not in focus at all. But you can see the scene, you can tell what's going on, you can see what's happening. And I think it shows them in a more realistic light. Nothing's posed, it's just as they are. But what I have done is wherever I've captured a picture of somebody's face, somebody who's clearly identifiable, I've blanked their face out with a piece of their surroundings. So, if they're leaning against a wall, I've took a square wall out and hidden their face with it. Because homeless people tend to be invisible to people. It's a little bit like when you can't find your keys and you're looking straight at them. I find that that's how people approach the homeless. They can see them, they know they're there, but their mind doesn't register them, so they walk by. And that can be manifested through, lots of things: fear, misunderstanding, hatred. There's lots of reasons why people don't see the homeless, but they don't see them, and I do, and I help where I can. I don't help enough. I'm selfish like everybody else. I could give more money. I could do something else, and I don't. I've chosen to photograph them in a hidden way, in the hope of somehow at some point putting together a collection of pictures and putting them out there and getting people to hopefully just see what's really going on. I'm not claiming to be the best photographer. I'm not claiming to be some kind of martyr. I just want people to start to realise more that it's the pits. Soldiers, fathers, mothers, daughters, brothers, sisters, leaning against a wall in the wet with a wet blanket. What are we doing? 2019, what are we doing? If you change the shop fronts, this could be Dickens times. It's not good. So that's one of my photo projects anyway. To keep my self looking busy and being busy, keep my practice going, learn new things. I've always got a little project on the go. Over the summer I returned to freelancing a little bit, so I've not done it for a little while, so I did some pictures. I walked around Sheffield, around Liverpool with a couple of great models and makeup artists and made some nice fashion images just to freshen up my book a little bit, just to, put myself back on the fashion map as it was. As usual, I've not had time to follow up on it, so I'm back to the full-time job. But it's something that I'm going to continue to do as soon as I get time, perhaps Christmas, early New Year, shoot some more. What I also have done is, my wife Kirsty will tell you this, in being a photographer and being married and having a lovely wife and spending time, I have created a photographer's widow, she will tell you. I don't go anywhere without my camera, and I'm sure it drives her absolutely mad, but she bears with me, I guess, because she understands that it's a part of who I am, taking pictures, but it must drive her absolutely nuts. I'm sure it would me if it was the other way around. So when we're on holiday, we're walking around on holiday and I'm working, taking pictures. I just can't help it. It's just who I am and how I am. But it enables you to get things that you wouldn't normally get. And again, it adds something else to your portfolio, makes you look busy, appear busy, and it makes more than that. It makes people realise that you're creative, you're doing things, you're buzzing. So I would say to um, any photographer out there who's struggling for ideas, who's not got a lot of work coming on, if you're out of work or if you've got some downtime, just pick up the camera and go and shoot. Shoot around the house, shoot in the garden, shoot upstairs, downstairs, shoot your next door neighbour, photograph the wife, photograph the pegs on the line, which is something I did as part of my MA project. I'd had a knee operation, couldn't leave the house, was stuck for ideas. Pointed a camera in the back garden, became fascinated with it. It turned into a project for my masters. There's always something to photograph. Shadows coming through the window. Find something. There are always stories going on out of this. Always something to be found. And you can literally point your camera at anything. I'll make interesting pictures of it. Sometimes I'll be sitting in the bath and I don't have my camera with me. I have my phone, and I'll see something. I think, shall I take a picture of it? I take a snap on the phone because I don't have the control. It doesn't quite work, and then I'll be scrolling through my phone a few months later and I think, that was a great picture I took in the bath. Of those reflections and that bit of water. Wow, I'm going to use that. Always be taking pictures. You should always be thinking about pictures. It's the only way, A, to keep you sane, and B, to keep you fresh, keep your creative mind thinking, and keep your photographic skills the best they can be. Because without that, you're not a photographer, you're just a GWC, aren't you? A guy or girl with camera. And none of us want that label. So that's what I do to keep myself busy and looking busy. So just recently, I've decided to pick up on my private tutoring. So I've created this little side business called the Photo Tutor, which is basically just everything I do, but in a private way. So I've created some photo tours where I'm going to walk around Liverpool and York, a couple of my favourite places, and just take people around doing street photography and some architecture photography. You can get those through TripAdvisor. Private tutor wise, it's just a way of helping people who are either stuck with their camera skills or editing skills and can't get past things, or it's for people who are doing perhaps a qualification at college or university and aren't quite getting the right tuition which they're paid for, which does happen a lot. A lot of the requests I get are from people who are at university and college who aren't getting what they've paid their money for, so they come and pay more money privately from me to get them over the line and to give them the information they need to be successful and get their qualification. But more importantly than that, the qualification's great, the piece of paper's great, but what's more important than the piece of paper to present to an employer or whatever is what have you learned. It's quite easy to go through all that education and come out of it with a piece of paper but not be able to apply what you've learned, or not remember what you've learned, or not have absorbed what you've learned. I've come across students who have graduated and still can't really operate a camera, still can't tell me or explain to me how to get an exposure in certain situations because they've just not been taught it. So the importance, I guess, of what I'm saying for private tutorship is it's there, not just myself, for other people to get, get specialist help in specialist areas. Our son, he goes to piano lessons, and the tutor is first class. I mean, obviously I'm a teacher and a tutor, I know what tutoring and teaching is, but this guy's first class, and he's taken a kid who's never touched a piano at all in his life within the 6 months. He's doing Bohemian Rhapsody like he's done it all his life. Just amazing, because the tutor is great. That personal time, that one-to-one, going through it with him, using method and methodology, absolutely brilliant. And as a student, you shouldn't be afraid to do that. As a photographer, you shouldn't be able to do that. I'm afraid to do that. Some photographers are great, they can self-teach. I self-taught, but I'm a bit of a head case, I think, in that respect. I have had some private tuition, certainly in the Photoshop arena when I first started, to get me to understand the technical side of it and the maths more than anything. But I have had tuition. So yeah, it's something that I kind of enjoy doing, and I want to help not just students but photographers who are stuck, who don't understand it, who can't get past it, and who aren't getting the help elsewhere, either from themselves or from their current teachers. And I enjoy it. I enjoy making the videos, I enjoy having the conversations, I enjoy seeing the utter glee on people's faces when they've finally, got the image that they've wanted all along. So private tutorship, yeah, it's something I could probably see myself doing full time. It's something I could really, I think I would benefit from it as a practitioner as well. It will push me hard to make sure my skills are relevant and even, what's that current buzzword, future proof. So yeah, I've just set that up going the last couple of weeks. I've got some things buzzing around, starting to get some regular clients coming in, so my evenings and weekends are going to be quite busy over the next while. But these are the things that you have to do to survive financially as well as mentally. What was this? Suspected spam. It'll be that website that I've got that's called something that somebody's just made up, and they'll be trying to sell me that again. Happens 10 times a day. I'm sure you've all had it. So yeah, back to photography. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Just set the photo tutor up. I'm enjoying that. It's been great. It kind of spurred me on to start this this blog actually, because I've made quite a lot of videos this week, tutorial videos. And I've had the equipment out and I've quite enjoyed it. I've got into rhythm, so I thought, you know what, if I'm ever going to start this podcast, I'll start it now. So here we are with the first ever time traveller, photography, reality, history, future, industry, education, style-y podcast, which is really what it is and how it'll be. So I guess that's pretty much it for this first one. It's, I've rambled a bit and I'll give you a bit of a heads up on what we're going to do and what we're going to talk about. If anybody has any subjects that they'd like to discuss, talk about, or get me to investigate or give my opinions on, ping me an email, burkittphoto@gmail.com, or give me a hit on Twitter, social media, Instagram and things. It's at burkittphoto for them all. You can just put Burkitt Photo or Lance Burkitt Photographer into Facebook and find me in there. And that's really all it. So I'll try. Well, I don't know what the time scale is going to be. One a week, maybe. One a week at least. Probably around the weekend. But I'll try and set a regular pattern, so you know when they're going to be. Plus, if you subscribe to Podomatic or wherever you can find me, I'm sure you'll get an update and you'll be able to come and have a listen. But I will try and give people a heads up as to when it's happening and what we're going to be talking about. So that's it for today. Thanks for putting up with me and listening to my drivel. Maybe some food for thought in there for you. If not, maybe there'll be some food for thought in the next one. Anyway, cheers for listening. Catch you all soon.
See it coming, won't ever see me rise, won't ever see me coming. I'm the darkness in disguise, and I'm gonna break your soul, gonna break your soul. Change is coming, I'm the devil in disguise, and I'm gonna take your soul, gonna take your soul. You can walk right past me, yet you'll never way through me, you better hang your head in shame. I'm gonna break your soul. Gonna take your soul. Scared of the dark nights, always chase the light. Scared of the dark times, I'm the devil in disguise.